Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 197, recorded on April 11th, 2012. I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Fearless Leader is gone today. He will be back for Twitch tomorrow. Unfortunately, he is enjoying being wined and dined down in Austin, Texas by a certain company that is based down there and really wants to release some CPUs here shortly, or maybe longly. But anyway, he's not here. But if you want to follow us, leave us a voicemail or email. You can call 1-888-38-PC-PER, or you can email at podcast@pcper.com. You can find these podcasts at pcper.com/podcast. Also, if you want to, for some strange, odd, and unbelievable reason, follow Ryan Shrout on Twitter, you can go to twitter.com/Ryan Shrout on one word, or follow the PC Perspective news lead with twitter.com/PCPer. This week didn't have a huge amount of articles, but we did have quite a bit of news. So we can start off with one of the old articles that was posted right after last week's podcast. It's the iPad 2012 or iPad 3 or whatever the heck you want to call it versus the Transformer Prime. Now, Jeremy, did you have a chance to read over this or get the gist of all that was going on?
Well, I mean, I took a quick peek at it, but Alan is really the iPad addict of our bunch, seeing as the two of us don't really do that much in the way of mobile devices.
I am
That's
now.
right.
I didn't
Alan?
have one for... I had put off the iPad thing until the 3 came out, and then I finally sprung and got one. But yeah, it's cool. I cannot speak at all to comparing it against the Transformer Prime. I mean, I've used some Android tablets before. I personally just favor the iOS thing better. I just think it's
more better.
Use.
It's Steve Jobs
for that kind of
approved.
thing. There's things that I always get crap for, like having, because I use like an iPhone and now iPad for stuff, things like that. But when it comes to those types of things, I don't feel like messing around and tweaking it. I just want it to work. I don't have time anymore to mess with those things. So it's like, yes, this works. It's good package. Works good. Lasts a long time. Okay. Me bye. That's pretty much it.
It's got a massive stinking battery in it, so that's going to be a big thing.
Huge battery. I would like to see somebody come out with... I don't think the dock connector can output very much power, and I know that's sort of a weird question because why would you want to output power? But there are like some peripherals that, they can, like a smart card reader thing that can import pictures from smart cards to the iPad and do whatever with it. I don't really do that much kind of stuff, but what I'd like to see come out is somebody make some sort of a little adapter thing that plugs into that and then leaches off of the iPad battery and lets you charge like other phones, because that battery is technically like 10 or 15 other phone batteries worth of capacity. So that would be pretty awesome. If you're just like, hey, my phone battery's dead, but look, I have this huge battery right here. Let me just plug something into it.
Yeah, Matt Smith had taken a look at both of these products, and the thing that it really boiled down to was the easy use, overall design, and that stinking
pixels.
monstrosity. Well, the pixels and the stinking monstrosity of a battery. I mean, it was almost double the performance of the Transformer Prime. And I mean, when you're using something 9 hours a day, I mean that does make a huge difference. He tested the brightness at 70% and 30%, and I mean the iPad 3 just smoked them like dramatically. And so, about the only advantage that the Android has is you're going to have more of an open source type experience. You've got all the Android apps out there, and it's going to be cheaper for the amount of features that you get. But in the end, I guess that you pay for what you get. You get the longer, bigger battery life. You get the much better display. You have what's pretty mature iOS. I mean, it's been through 4 generations of iPhones and 3 generations of pads. So things are really, clicking along for Apple. I mean, anything else you'd kind of like to add to that?
Just in general, Apple has been very good about when things use a higher resolution, they're very good about making that work like from the OS up, right? As opposed to like think about Windows, trying to use Windows with the little DPI slider thing, whatever it is. If you had a higher DPI display and you wanted your stuff bigger, it's always just a mess, right? Some stuff doesn't look right and the spacing is weird and it's always been horrible, right? And anytime that I've seen like either iOS and now actually I've heard because I think there was some app or there was something you can use on to make like an iPad and a remote display for a MacBook. I don't know because I don't have a MacBook, but there was some little trick to doing that, and you can also like Mac OS as well as iOS is very elegant now as far as like, hey, this screen has twice the resolution or twice the dots per inch. Okay, and everything just looks exactly like it did, just clearer, right? That's how they've always been. The iPhone 4 did the same thing, right? Higher resolution screen. Everything looked largely the same except for crisper, which is really what should happen when you increase the resolution. It shouldn't turn into everything just becomes microscopic and you can't see it, right? It's that's just something I think they've pulled off really well as compared to Windows or anything else for that matter.
I see. Well, going on to the next one, Lee, a.k.a. Robotech. I can't remember what
Robotech.
Robotech. He threw out another one of his patented power supply reviews, and we perused said power supply review, and he took a look at the Kingwin Laser Platinum 1000-watt unit. Now, apparently, this has a platinum power rating, so that's 85% plus efficiency.
Oh no, 90s.
90s. Wow.
Yeah, even an 89% efficiency at 100% load. And
that's
it even matched it.
He what?
It even matched it. There was one case where he was running full load on dirty 115 AC at 100% load, and it dipped to about 89.5. But apart from that, well over 90.
Kingwin's kind of a strange little company. I've been dealing with them for probably almost a decade. They kind of introduced themselves when I was still building some computers on the side. And they had decent components at a decent price, but it wasn't anything fancy. They kind of got into the power supply business about 6 or 7 years ago. And, they were one of the first to kind of have some of the modular designs. They put some LEDs in there. They made it look nice, but the internals were not all that great. Well, it seems like they're kind of really coming around, and the internals, the efficiency, the quality is really gone up there, and they still have a pretty decent price for the product you get. So don't be too terribly afraid of Kingwin anymore, as they're a little bit better than what they used to be, which is good for everybody. Heading on to the next story. It was Z77 week, and we covered at least one board in a little bit of detail. Asus has released the ROG Maximus 5 Gene. I believe this is a Z77. Am I correct, Jeremy, or am I smoking crack?
It is true, but you might be smoking crack too. I can't say about that. But yeah, but are they yours? This is a nice little Z77 chipset, which, of course, we can't fully test yet, but hey, it's nice to see them. And probably one of the neater things that they added to this was a combo mini PCI Express card. It's micro PCI Express plug with a combo card that goes into it where you can slap in an mSATA drive to either go with Intel SRT or even use it as a boot drive. And it still leaves another slot free for you to be able to slap in, say, a cell phone card or Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or, anything else you can find that's going to fit on that slot. So, this could be a lot of fun for somebody, especially since this is a micro ATX board. So think very portable, think a very highly capable LAN party machine with the ability to play over a cell phone network if you can afford the data. It's, of course, as well designed on their 8+4+2 power phase technology, and nice 2 Digi Plus controllers on board, which is going to be really nice for the overclockers. Brand new Supreme FX 3 sound card coming from Creative. So you get a lot of Zi-Fi activity. Or, sorry, not Creative. Asus makes them themselves, but modeled after. So you get Zi-Fi EAX. And you get a nice little batch of software, which they're calling it Intel Ethernet Republica Gamer Game First. So they're avoiding the whole monster or killer NIC. But at the same time, it sounds like it's sort of doing the same thing while avoiding the branding that we all know and love. But when you get right down to it, you got 2 PCI Express 3.0 slots. So you're going to get dual 8X. So again, if you're going to try and fit 2 full-size GPU cards on a micro ATX board, well, good luck. Hey, have fun doing it. And you got 4 SATA 6G, 2 SATA 6.3, an eSATA, and nicely you've got, where did it go? I believe 6 USB 3.0s native to the board. So a significant amount of gaming power and a significant amount of features in a very, very tiny spot.
Yeah, the Z77 is the first Intel chipset to actually integrate native USB 3.0 performance, and I think that Tech Report took a look at that, and they did some really good tests. And the only other chipset out there that has the native USB 3 support is the AMD A75 chipset that goes with their Llano, and the Intel product was significantly faster. I mean, 20 to 30% in most cases. And so we can see that AMD still has a ways to go with their I/O, even though USB 3.0, they were beating everybody by about 9 months. Well, probably more than that. It's almost 10 months now. They still need to, work on some of their low-level speed. Something that will interest a lot of people, perhaps even those listening to this podcast, is the Raspberry Pi has passed some of its compliance tests and is a step closer to being released. Alan, have you been paying attention to this at all?
I've been keeping up with it. I like the whole concept and everything, and it's kind of silly that it keeps hitting all these stumbling blocks along the way. But again, it is good to see it's finally passing all of those stumbling blocks, if you will, and now it's going to be out there. But yeah, it's basically just a really tiny Linux-capable PC on a really tiny board with everything just all built into it. What was that other stumbling block they had before? It was something with the
Ethernet the Ethernet port didn't have the correct magnets in there, or it was the non-magnet one that wouldn't work with the design.
Yeah,
so they had to desolder them.
Yep. But they got past that pretty quickly. Then they stumbled on the CE thing, and now that's done. So it'll be out there. I might get one to tinker with, but I'm still on the fence. I'll probably wait for like Gen 2. I'm a Gen 2 kind of guy.
Did you ever pick up one of those Arduino? Is that what it's called?
I haven't. I haven't had the need to I haven't had a project that's needed that. Usually when somebody uses one of those, they use it for some project, right? Because Arduino is like this awesome programmable, just a little microcontroller. You can make them do just about anything. But I haven't come across something where I needed, man, I really need this chip that can just turn something on and off, and then that would be the pick, but hasn't come up yet. But yeah, that's actually a totally different animal than this guy, right? This guy's you could plug this in. It could literally be double-sided sticky tape to the back of a monitor and plugged in, and it could be like the whole computer, right? Really tiny.
And I'm all about that double-sided sticky tape.
Oh yeah,
plug me in somewhere with it.
This thing's so tiny you can just let it hang from the HDMI cable.
Just dangle from the dongle?
Yep.
Just dangle from the dongle.
And the wafting breeze will cool it enough that it will run stably.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a small break for our ad and thank our sponsor for continuing their support for PC Perspective. Without that, we wouldn't have a show, and we wouldn't be paid. So that would be 2 terrible strikes against something to do on a Wednesday night. And we're back. It's kind of funny. I was talking to a fella who is over in England, and he is working a night shift, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch the show. I mean, I appreciate you guys doing this because it's a whole lot more interesting than the radio." And I said, "Okay, well, thanks for calling us. I need to go upstairs, shave my head, take a shower." He said, "Don't forget to put on the aftershave." And I thought, wow, it's probably good that our webcams don't have olfactory pickups because my mom would like Skype in and say, "Hey, Mom," she'd be like, "Hey, John, oh my God, did something crawl up there and die?" So.
Wow.
I'm happy that we don't have that. But you know what? It could be Smellorama 3.0 or in space 3D. Anyway,
Space
now
3D.
we're on to the first real news story of a while. I guess that Anand was able to do some digging around and found that the IndyLinks controller that powered the Octane and the Vertex 4 is not really an IndyLinks controller. Alan, take it away.
Yeah, that's pretty much the deal. Although that's not the link. Oh, that's the initial. Yeah, Burke put up like the initial IndyLinks controller review from way back when. So yeah, IndyLinks has been doing SSDs for a while, right? They've had their name on a bunch of things, and then they got acquired by OCZ, and then they made a couple more products. But the thing is, it's not like they made the whole thing. They actually make the firmware at present. It's not like the original IndyLinks Barefoot controller, which was their own animal, their own baby. Turns out there's a Marvell controller in the Octane and the Vertex 4. So, and actually, I was reading some of the commenters on Anand's page, and everybody was like, "Oh, I feel I was."
You've been bamboozled. You've been lied to.
Yeah, there you go. That's
hoodwinked.
what I was looking for. Yeah, it's like I've been hornswoggled. I've been, they were sneaky and whatever.
They rebadged it. They rebadged it.
Welcome to so many different rebadging things. Like every time I go to make an update to the SSD decoder, it's like trying like half of the companies, they have their products up there. They never say what the controller is, right? You have all these memory companies that just sort of like jumped into the game and they just wanted to make their own product and they're just sticking generic whatever controller in there. At least OCZ it's a product, right? When they come out with it, it's the firmware and the controller, right? It's not the firmware pretty much makes the controller, as evidenced by the most recent review we did, which was the Vertex 4, and we saw the initial firmware was like, whoa, what's this doing? And then we looked at the updated one, made drastic changes, drastic improvements, right?
So let me ask you this, Alan. Before you go on, and we're talking about comparing, compare and contrast this with the Intel 510, which also uses a very similar but probably not the same Marvell controller.
Yeah, very true. And Intel, believe it or not, because Intel, when they came out with their 520, which was SandForce driven, we were shocked because OCZ did all those firmware tweaks with the Vertex 3 under SandForce to get really vastly improved performance compared to other companies using it. Intel with the 520 was able to tweak that even further and push it further and even outpace the Vertex 3. Whereas if you go back to Intel's 510, which used Marvell, if that's, I think that's a very similar chip to what was in the Octane, if my numbers are correct. Now, realize we don't have hard numbers on this because it's sort of just breaking news and whatnot. But the Octane outpaced the 510 by a lot. So, assuming it's the same controller, then IndyLinks is doing a better job with firmware than Intel.
And didn't IndyLinks just fairly recently provide a firmware update to their original Barefoot drive or Barefoot controller?
Yeah. What was it? The Era. What was the name of the firmware? They came out basically. It was about a month back. They came out with a firmware update to the original Vertex, the original Barefoot controller Vertex. They're not even shipping those anymore. I don't think it's an end of life product. But they're like, hey, if you still got them. Our engineering guys were in the back and they just did some tweaks and poof. And it made huge changes from what I understand. I haven't been able to see them in person yet because I'm trying to get our original IndyLinks samples were like pre-release hardware. So we're trying to get them to update so we can retest and let people know how it does. But again, it's weird because we haven't had, and nobody's even asked to look at it, because I think everyone that's had the original ND-Links has got the SSD fever by then and has since upgraded to one of the. It's been like 4 generations you could probably call it since that controller came out.
Yeah,
So,
just like I upgraded to the first generation Samsung drives in my main machine just a few months ago.
why are you holding it in your hand if it's in your main machine?
Well, this is the 256 gig. I've got the 128 in there. Anyway.
Because you should use that one. It's a good SSD.
I will use that one. I just need to find the time to abuse.
I sent Josh an SSD that I had over here, and all he does is he sits on it for like 3 months and just waves it around.
Yeah,
just wave it around on the podcast.
How's the GTX 483?
How can you contain your anticipation of reinstalling an OS again?
Just
because it's so easy. Oh. Anyway, something I had talked about earlier with you, Alan, about this. I mean, we've gotten through several generations of SSD controllers. I mean, is there any secret sauce left that we can really do at the hardware level, or are we more bound by what's in the firmware rather than, all these controllers have multiple ARM cores. They've got, memory controllers and I/O controllers that are all SATA 6G, and they all perform seemingly at a pretty high rate. Is there going to be any more room for improvement on the actual controller side, or are we going to see more software, or possibly even a bigger improvement in the way the NAND signaling is being advanced in the future?
So we'll answer that, but backwards. The NAND stuff, as far as NAND signaling and control and protocol and actually talking to the flash memory goes, that has changed a lot since SSDs started to become prevalent, right? Not only have you had die shrinks over the years, but you've also had changes to the protocol, changes to the speed. They're not advertised very often because it's not something that you stick on the side of a box for an SSD. You don't say that it has this kind of flash that can do 200 megabits per second to the flash chip, because nobody cares about that. They care about, what's the part of it that you're plugging into the computer? How fast is that going? But yes, it's changed a lot, right? There's probably I think 5 or 6 different speed grades for ONFI style flash, which is the IMFT flash. It's the Intel/Micron flash memory. That's in a lot of stuff. Samsung flash memory, same kind of deal. Maybe not as many different speed grades, but there's different toggle modes. There's just all kinds of different things that the different types of flash memory can do as far as how fast you want it to go. They have full duplex, half duplex. You can do multiple things at the same time. Some flash memory can actually, it's one physical package, but it has 2 channels, 2 data channels to it. So there's a lot of differences there, right? As far as controller technology interfacing with the flash, a lot of that has become homogeneous, especially recently, right? Many of the controllers coming out now, they come out and they don't only have support for ONFI, they also have support for toggle mode, and the other types of flash memory. They just sort of build that all in at the same time so that when they do, when they do start manufacturing these things, they can pair them up with whatever style of flash memory they want to. So yeah, the speed grades have gone up. But as the die shrinks have happened, the block erase sizes has changed. In other words, when they shrink the die down, you have to erase bigger and bigger chunks of flash memory at the same time. That complicates the whole, how all the algorithms work for that technology, right? And where if before you optimized it a certain way so that you didn't have too much write amplification, you didn't have too much basically musical chairs of your data shifting around as you were trying to write, just a 4K here to this one spot and 4K to the other spot, and the drive didn't have to do huge, drastic rearrangements of data in the background to pull that off. That's the kind of stuff that, way back when we talked about fragmentation over time, and that's kind of issues that Intel had some issues with, way first generation. So there's all that part of the dynamic. The other part is there's huge differences in the different actual controller architectures, right? The different companies have they're just completely different mindsets. The original Intel controller, like X25M, X25M G2, now the 320 series, similar controller across the board on those, by the way. But it's like a really low latency controller. It's really fast. It's a really small instruction set kind of thing. It's almost like RISC for an SSD controller, if you will. And then that's able to communicate the 10 simultaneous channels to the flash memory. So that's what made that drive really fast and really hard to beat for a long time. For like, we're talking like, a year, easy. And then you have that what was it? Samsung A30 series that we just looked at, right? That's a triple channel ARM. So it's 3 ARM processors. Triple core. So it's 3 ARM processors all sitting on a die, all operating in parallel and all sharing, I think how they have it configured is 8 channels to the flash. So instead of one, so you have Intel, one controller, 10 channels. Somehow it's able to juggle that, and however their architecture is laid out, they programmed it to do so, right? Whereas Samsung basically has 3 SSD controllers sitting on the SSD in a manner of speaking, and each one of those can speak to any channel of flash. It actually does like an arbitration to figure out which channel, is somebody else talking to this flash chip? No? Okay, I'll talk to this guy, right? So it does that, and somehow they pulled that off very well. And that, I would imagine, is a very complicated firmware to pull off. And I think that hardware has been that way for a while. I think they've had a multiple core controller on their solid state drives for a while. It's just now with the 830 that they were able to figure it out as far as the firmware goes and really mature that and make it start to scream. And it definitely did, because when we tested that drive, it just took out everything else, right? So really, yeah, there's difference. The differences in all those different controllers and the implementation and the firmware just make huge differences. And there's also a lot of things that are very hard for us to benchmark and publish on and review, because my rule on what I include in a review is I need to be able to actually prove it with hard numbers. That's sort of my own little just pet peeve kind of rule. I won't just I'll try not to speculate on something unless I have something to back it up. And there are many different aspects to how SSDs interact with the system that you cannot easily test. Trim, for example, right? Some drives use trim, some drives don't use trim. Nowadays, most of them do. However, when you issue a trim command to a solid-state drive, it takes a certain amount of time for that drive to respond afterwards. It actually hangs the drive depending on the controller, right? So we've seen some SSDs, you go to format them under Windows 7 and they don't respond for like a minute and a half for a really large drive. That means that drive is actually busy doing the trim, process in the background. So different drives will perform differently just based on how that interaction happens when your OS is just running normally. Say you delete a couple of small files, yeah, the drive will probably handle it really quick. You delete a couple of large files, it might actually be busy for a while. You delete like a gigabyte file on an SSD, it might take 5 or 10 seconds to actually do that trim operation, depending on how it's programmed. So there's still a lot of different things that reviewers cannot easily benchmark, test, put metrics on. And as we get different benchmark capabilities and those things change, and people start to bring those performance differences to light, then the manufacturer is going to have to go back to square one on that, make additional tweaks. I mean, there's just a huge, it's really a never-ending cycle for this, especially when you span it across all the different controller types and everything else. So, yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah. And just to kind of, move on to another topic, what do you think of these SSD prices that we're seeing right now? I mean, we've surpassed, it seems, less than $1 a gigabyte for a lot. Is there any reason for this? It's just the way normal things have been going. Is there something significant in the industry that has caused this? Because in the last week, 3 weeks, like the Agility 3 has gone from $330 to $380 for a 240 gig drive, down to $229 after their $20 rebate. So we're talking less than $1 a gig,
right? And it's been a trend. It's really sort of been coming for a while now, right? But yeah, drives like the Agility, they can probably get there sooner because they're using the Agility 3 specifically is using, I don't want to say lower grade, but just it's asynchronous versus synchronous flash memory. So flash memory that's binned to operate in asynchronous mode reliably in that mode is just tends to be cheaper than the synchronous stuff. So yeah, you'll start to see the cheaper binned flash memory in solid state drives because that's the big driver of the cost. Really, the controller is like $8 to $10 usually. So everything else is just the PCB and the flash, right? The PCB is like $1 probably to make. So yeah, really, I mean, the flash memory is the bulk of the price of any given SSD, and especially with the 25 nanometer stuff is definitely mature by now, and that's what you still see in everything, right? I mean, there have been hints that people are going to make 20 and 19 nanometer flash parts and stuff, but it's just not there yet, right? The yields aren't there yet. But 25 is basically in everything now. So when they're starting making that much volume, and they probably got a little bit of a bump back a few months ago when the whole tile and flooding thing happened and people started to back off of hard drives, and maybe instead of doing that, that hard drive purchase when they saw, a 1 terabyte drive go upwards of $150, they were just like, well, what if I was just using the hard drive I already have for my bulk storage and I just spent $150 on like a 60 or 100 gig SSD, right? There was probably a shift, and there's probably a mentality shift, and some people probably did that back then. Between that, Ultrabooks, right? Most Ultrabooks shipping now, they're coming with solid state drives in them. Those have to have flash memory. So there have been some incremental things that have bumped up the need for flash memory. It's not just an enthusiast thing anymore. And so, yeah, it's you bump up that demand and the factories start making more and
make them for cheaper.
And the prices go down. I mean, it just happens. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where there's nothing but flash stuff. I think there's still going to be a use and a need for hard drive tech, but it's just, it's going to be the bulk storage thing. It's not going to be the random access thing.
No, because the closest we've only been using hard drives for the past 60 years, really.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the closest my hard drives and my yeah, the closest my hard drives in my system ever get to the solid state drives in my system is when there's a backup running from the SSDs to the hard disk. So you have random access on the SSD to sequential access on the hard disk, which is actually the perfect thing for both of them to be doing, right? Hard drives are good for big, long sequential transfers. They can go really fast at that. They just don't like doing random things. That's what the solid state's for.
We could probably say that about a lot of things, but we're not going to go there. Instead, we're going to go for the Tegra 4 leaks. Apparently, NVIDIA has let out some information to people who don't know how to keep a secret, and we're finally seeing what is in store for us in 2013. Now, currently, all of the Tegra 2, Tegra 3 products are based on the Cortex-A9 core, and Tegra 4, yes, is going to be based on the next generation Cortex-A15, which provides slightly better IPC, or instructions per clock, and even better, it runs at a faster rate than the previous generation. So we're seeing clock speeds going from 1.2 gigahertz to 2 gigahertz with these new quad core. In fact, since they're the NVIDIA Tegra, they're the 4+1 cores. They're going to be available for a range of products. They're going to have, like, the flagship is going to be a 2 gigahertz product. It's going to be used primarily in 10-inch type tablets. And these are still going to be shipping out from Q1 through Q3 of 2013. So it's nice that we're going to see, I believe, what is that? Is that the code name Wayne for that, Jeremy?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. And Tim had posted all about this. And so, we're seeing NVIDIA. These are all apparently going to be 28 nanometer products. And it's good that they're, kind of finally catching up in ways to the guys at Samsung and the Puda Snapdragon. Qualcomm?
Qualcomm, right? Yeah, it's Qualcomm.
Yeah. Sometimes these names, there's too many code names out there and company names. But anyway, they're keeping on the ball. We're going to see these products out. 2012 is essentially going to be Tegra 3 for NVIDIA, but 2013 they're really pushing the Tegra 4, and they're hoping that their unique designs with slightly more interesting graphics technology that they built in-house rather than utilizing those from Imagination Technologies or the ARM-developed Mali, however you want to pronounce that. That kind of technology. They're going to be pushing all their homegrown stuff, and certainly NVIDIA has a little bit of expertise when it comes to graphics. Just saying. Jeremy, talk to us about this main gear shift system. I hear this thing weighs about 350 pounds.
It cost more than you too, Josh. Sorry. This is we've gotten a few systems from Main Gear over the years, and the Shift generally tends to be their flagship. And no shift this one really is. You're looking at a Core i7-3960X with 3 HD 7970 cards, probably because they couldn't find 3 6800 or 680s for sale. But at one point, Ryan was saying that, okay, they've got a Corsair AX 1200 watt power supply in there. Do you think they really need that? And, well, they tested it, and at a full load on 3D Mark 11, it was pulling 1,050 watts from the wall. So, yes, you do need a power supply that big for some systems.
But you know what? This will heat your igloo in winter. In Antarctica,
it'll melt your igloo
really nicely.
You know what, guys? I have a welder that pulls 1,050 watts from the wall. Just saying.
Is its graphics as good as this?
It just makes really bright blue stuff. That's all it's able to do. Lights up the garage.
I haven't seen that test in 3D Mark 2011.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's
welding.
But it also has the Epic Audio System, which is something Main Gear has been selling for a while now, powered by Aphex. And so you're actually looking at studio quality audio, headphone and microphone dedicated amp. It's not too bad. You'll see that in sound rooms. So they haven't quite managed to finish getting all the tests done with it, but it did pass one of the most important tests for any pre-built system you buy anywhere.
It can be covered in mineral oil by the intern and still survive?
No, that's only the one supplier that does that.
Oh, okay.
And now why can't I think of their name? Was it Puget? Yeah, it was Puget Systems that did the mineral oil machine. But no, the big test that went past is no crapware. Because no matter how good your system is, if you have to spend an hour and a half uninstalling random stuff to find out that, oh, well, that broke the Wi-Fi, so now I have to find the driver for that, and this, that, and the other thing. So, hey, it looks like it's going to be something impressive, and it's going to be more than $2,000, I am sure of it.
$1 or $2 more.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a pretty neat looking system. Certainly I wished I could have, 3 7970s in my system, but that's not going to be happening anytime soon, if not ever.
I like how
I just think of the power bills you're saving.
I like how it's that 90-degree tilt case thing where the video card exhausts are out the top, and that's a cool design for a system
Raven
that's
and
heavy.
RV002 that I've been, pawning off on everybody for the past 3 years.
You love that case, right?
Silvertone stone.
No, it's a good design. I like that. Especially for a system like that where obviously the GPUs are cranking out a bunch of heat. So that just makes sense that heat rises, might as well take advantage of it. It's got to go somewhere, right?
That is correct. Zotac has a pretty good history of making very, very small boards. Now, some people may consider this a detriment, but for for them, it works out well. They have announced several Intel 7 series motherboards, all based on, of course, the Intel 7 series. That would include the Z77 and other smaller. H77 is one of the smaller ones. These will take the Ivy Bridge processors. If you need a very, very small form factor that has integrated Wi-Fi, with the smaller Wi-Fis, not the bigger GBs. But also, these are very, very focused products. And Zotac has done very, very well. I hear very few problems about these products. And, they are not for everyone. So if you need to have a bunch of expansion ports, then you need to look elsewhere. But otherwise, they are staying on the cutting edge of chipset and motherboard design for small form factor computers. What can you tell us about the leaks of the NVIDIA GTX 690? Jeremy, talking to you.
Peli is just not having a good month, let me tell you. So after all of the leaks we had on the 680, where essentially NVIDIA pretty much just had to release it because we already knew everything. So the 690, we should be seeing hopefully by the end of May, I believe it was. But the leaks that we do know put it at having a pair of 8-pin power connectors. So it's going to be sucking significantly more power than the 680. On the other hand, there's a reason for that. It's got 2 GK104 GPUs in it. It's going to be interesting to see. Another strange thing that they did was sort of pare down your choices for outputs. You got 3 DVI ports and a mini display port, whereas with almost any 680 I've seen, there's 2 DVIs, an HDMI, and a full-size display port. Of course, with a single adapter, it's not like you have to really worry about the fact that you're not going to be able to run an HDMI. But as far as hard specs go, as to what this thing's going to be capable of, what it's going to be doing, well, we're not quite sure yet. We do know that we don't know enough about it, because this is not the 680 GPU, is it, Josh? Is the 104 the same?
GK104 is the same 680.
I'm trying to remember.
So basically,
there was confusion there.
Yeah, they're binning these. They're going to run about at the same, well, according to the leak, they're going to run at the same clock speed. But, they're going to require 2 8-pins, which gives it about, 300 watts of usable power. And if you consider that even when you're thoroughly abusing the GTX 680, you're barely pulling 170 to 180. So when they consolidate some of the power circuitry and put 2 GPUs on there, and I think they've got a PCI Express 3.0 bridge chip that will take the 16 lanes of PCI 3.0 and divide it into the 2 GPUs. You're only looking at 270 to 300 watts of peak power consumption.
Yeah.
So if you get 2 of these, that's just 600 watts of power just for the graphics.
Yeah, and we were sort of mentioning that the main gear shift might take some power. Well, guess what? The one thing we do not know, which would be lovely to see, is how much RAM is going to be on this machine. It's going to be interesting to see.
It's going to be 4 gigs off the bat. There may be somebody who will do 8 gigs, but I think that is going to be very, very rare and kind of iffy at this point.
Some people don't have 8 gigs in their higher end system.
VRAM or RAM. Hell, even combined.
Yes. Or all of it.
So, Jeremy, what do you think about piracy? I mean, just lay it out there. Throw it out. Unzip, let it go.
If you put out a really, really good product, and, it's a product that people are actually probably going to be buying and want, and tell their friends that it's great and they should buy it. In theory, piracy might be able to hurt you if they don't feel that what you put out is worth money. If, on the other hand, you put out a shooting game which had commercials sort of featuring the fact that you got points for teabagging somebody. Maybe you put out a crap product that nobody actually wants to buy. So by waving the piracy flag saying, oh, well, it's obviously the fault of the pirates out there that are stealing our wonderful, lovely game, I think maybe you're blowing smoke up somewhere you shouldn't be. It exists.
Shareholders, stockholders, they can be easily confused with some hand waving about piracy. Piracy is making us paupers because we're losing all of our monies, because we're making a product that does not appeal to people who actually pay for things. Maybe that would be a nice philosophy to embrace. Hey, for a change, let's make a product that people actually want to pay for.
Oh, but we told you the Bulletstorm was going to be profitable. Bulletstorm was a wonderful game. Didn't you see that commercial? The commercial. We put it on regular TV, so obviously people are going to buy it. Actually, no, your target audience is still playing Halo. Honestly.
I hate it when any company uses the piracy thing as a crutch. They're just like, they just wave that flag. They're waving it for the wrong reason. Seriously. And at the same time, you end up getting like oddball stuff. Even with that going on, and I'm not saying piracy is not going on, because obviously there is, but stop giving people reasons about that.
Yeah. And
because everything I've heard about this game, Bulletstorm, just does not appeal to me. I mean, I realize I'm a 39-year-old gamer, but I cut my teeth on Quake 2.
Atari.
Unreal. Side-scrolling Duke Nukem.
Atari.
Well, yeah. I wasn't into games at that point, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Al.
You get. Here's an example. What was it? What was that Burnout game for PC? Burnout Paradise, right? You guys didn't play?
Yeah, there were a few of them.
Yeah, there was the most recent one, which I'm pretty sure is the most recent one, right? Burnout Paradise. You're driving around the city. It's sort of like Grand Theft Auto-ish. You free roaming anywhere you want to go, that sort of thing. Really nice game. Had downloadable content in addition to the game, which I sort of disagree with on principle anyway. So I didn't get any of the downloadable content for it. But guess what? Now, if I wanted to, and this game works perfect, you can still use it. Everything's good. But their store, EA shut down their store for that game for, downloadable DLC. You can't get it. And then further, if you had previously purchased that downloadable content and you had an account of some form where you would need to do a reinstall and you wanted to reactivate that stuff,
bye.
You ain't getting it. You don't get to have it. Whatever money you spent, you just donated it, right? So, and especially now with all the rumors we're hearing about PlayStation 4, and I realize it's not PC game, but you end up with consoles that are trying to make it so that you couldn't even take a game and they're so locked down that you couldn't even have a used game market, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody buys the game, they didn't like it, they want to go, they have the package for the game. It's not like, that console, you can just make a copy of it, really, not easily, but still, you start locking it down so far that the price for the game is supposed to be more of just a donation to the cause, that there's no way you can get a return on the investment ever. It almost makes it as if the value is zero, right? Imagine if you bought a car and you lived in a society where it was illegal or you were unable for some technical reason to sell the car. That's ridiculous. It's you're buying this, you're stuck with it. If you don't like it, well, you might as well throw it in the trash.
As soon as they start making $60 cars, I really won't care about that.
Well, yeah, true, but maybe
I don't think you can get a Yugo anymore, can you?
Investment.
Yeah, but any kind of investment, it's like you bought this, you can't, whatever it is, you bought it. Sorry, you're stuck with it. You can't do anything else with it. It becomes worthless to try to transfer it to somebody else. That is just that means you just have contempt for your customers, in my opinion. I think that is ridiculous to do that. And that's the kind of thing that will take people, and it will just, even people that had purchased games, had never pirated anything, you start doing those kinds of things to them, they're going to start pirating things. These are the same people that I bought that I bought that EA game and I enjoy it. Well, now that there's no way for me to buy the downloadable content, somebody might come out with some patch just to make that part of the game work. It's something that I can not even buy from them anymore. So like where do you stand on the moral ground of that, right? It's like, is that something where somebody might use a patch to make that content work? You can't buy it. You can't even buy it used, right? You can't even, somebody selling the DLC that they had. No, it just doesn't work that way, right? So you start making people make these kinds of choices, that's going to sway them to what the industry considers the dark side, right? The piracy side. They're going to start doing that stuff once they realize how easy it is and that, oh, you mean I don't have to have the disc in my machine every time I want to play the game now because I did this? And then it doesn't take, too long before the temptation sets in, and then they just start, downloading everything and they don't buy anything anymore. So,
well, temptation. I'm still not going to sell it to you anymore. But I could get it for free over there. I'm offering you money because I like what you did. No, we don't want it. Right? And you're claiming that piracy affects sales, or you put someone in the other position, and Josh might be familiar with this one as well, where you have a single little copy that is protected, however, be it Stardock, be it whatever DRM they want to go with, it starts fighting with other programs on your system. In the case of Sony and their brilliant move to install what was technically, although not really, a rootkit on your machine, you just end up in a position where
games like this,
where they
X3
finally
Reunion,
let us use it without the disc,
or what? Not Stardock, but
no, it was
that damn thing that pretty much installed on your system and jacked.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example because they backed off. All of a sudden, you don't need to have your X3 disc in your game to play anymore. They removed Starforce. That's it. Thanks,
Starforce. Yeah.
So they removed the DRM when they realized it was actually annoying their legitimate customers more than it could ever be preventing piracy. Because guess what? You could probably get a downloaded copy of that game within 24 hours, 48 hours. And the other thing is, if you have kids, having only one copy of a favorite DVD or a favorite CD means you're going to be buying a lot of copies of it over and over and over again as the kids kill them, because they do.
Yep. There are games sitting on the shelf behind me that I've bought that I never even took the game out of the box. Like, just because I knew that it had, this insane copy protection thing, I'd never installed the game from the box. I just
you paid money for it and then you downloaded it.
Yeah, I bought it because I believed it was a good product. I believed that they, that they deserved my money for, producing a nice game. But I just never even bothered. I was just like, I'll just download this. I don't feel like having to put the CD in my computer. My computer doesn't even have a CD drive.
Yeah.
And do you think that Valve is sitting on a gold mine here?
So that's where I wanted to go with this. You end up with like Valve and even independent game producers like 2D Boy, the guy that made the World of Goo, right? He did a thing where he just said, I'm going to sell this game and he blocked off like a week or a few days or something, and he said, you can buy this. It's you choose your donation. You have to pay me something to get it, but you choose how much. And then he ended up like publishing stats on, and it was like this huge blowout sale, and he made more like in that short period than he did from like the month prior, of selling it for a normal price. And he wasn't even charging that much for that game. I mean, it was like $10 or $5 or something like that. So, and Valve does that same kind of thing where every once in a while they'll have a blowout sale. They'll have, we're talking like 80% off sale.
And
right?
that's why my Steam menu is so stinking.
Yeah,
big.
Because you're just watching out for that stuff to go on sale, and the way they do that, and then you end up with a huge rush of people going out, like people that may not have even been on Steam. They're just like, "What? This game is like $1? Okay, fine." And then now you bought into it, and now you've got the thing sitting there on your computer, and you have your nice little game list. Right?
You've never played it, but damn it, you got it for $1.
Yeah,
$5.
Exactly. Yeah. At QuakeCon, they had those sales going on when we were at QuakeCon. which is
Yeah.
where they had like a huge pack of games, and they had some other independent games package that were on
Yeah,
sale.
like $1,000 a
through there.
game for
And
59
there were
bucks.
and I was walking around on the floor of QuakeCon, and you had people just like playing these obscure indie games that had been on sale through Steam, and they only picked it up and played it for a couple minutes. And there was even like some little spaceship game that like the guys were joking they didn't even know how to play it, and the guy was just horrible at it and dying continuously and whatnot. But they were having fun, right? And it was something with just it was like $1. And they just did this, and it was like, oh, that's cool. And then they were leaning over to the other people, going, hey, you should check out this one. And then they're spending $1. So just that sort of thing. That's the right way to sell stuff, right? Don't keep the
And you
price
can sell
ridiculously
stuff
high
that's
all
not
the time.
supported anymore.
Yeah,
You can sell stuff you can't buy anywhere else.
and that's
Except good old
that's the
Well,
true
okay.
that's the true
Another good
power
example.
of this kind of a distribution thing, is that it's not, you don't get boxes anymore. There's not a physical product to make. It's just bits. How much is it going to cost us to make 50 more extra copies of those bits this month, John? Well, 0, right?
Well, then why does it cost the same as a retail box?
Well, I know,
Because
but
people
at the
like
same
their
time,
margins.
They
enough.
want their margins, but along with that is the reason that you can justify having a sale that's that much of a blowout, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm okay with the prices still being, where they're at. It still costs money to develop a game, right? If the margin's better, they make their money back sooner. Okay, fine, sure, but at the same time, what I like seeing is that Steam and Valve and that kind of thing, you see those really blowout prices every so often. I think the same thing should apply to any other downloadable content industry. I think ebooks. I think Amazon should learn a lesson from that on ebooks. I think you'd get a lot more ebook sales if they did.
Oh,
the
I
same
think there's a
thing.
lawsuit
I
that's
think
going to
Apple-
teach them something about that.
Oh yeah, yep. That was
Apple's
just recently.
going to be learning a hard lesson on that one. The cost
Yeah,
of bits.
the
book.
price fixing, the price fixing thing.
They gunk up
Yes,
the
and I
tubes. You got to
agree.
pay for the cleaner.
Yeah, right. Get
Yeah.
Ted Stevenson to clean up the tubes. But actually, speaking of Apple, I think that's part of the reason iOS has some success to it, because the companies that list apps on their app store do the same kind of thing. They'll have like 80% off sales, and you'll see something shoot to the top of the chart of like how popular or how many how often it was downloaded on their app store, just on account of they did the sale, and something that was a $5 app they decided to cut down to like $1 for like a weekend or a week or something like that. Ironically, EA on Easter weekend did a huge sale like that for their apps, for their iOS apps, and I think Android apps as well. Just kind of weird.
Yep.
But
Irony for EA to do anything like that.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's like they're what are you doing on the PC? What's wrong with you guys? But then now they start doing it right on a different
Okay,
smartphone.
I've got to ask this to you guys,
Well,
and this is
okay,
again going to a totally different direction. But a lot of people complain about Origin, and I've got 2 games on Origin, and I've never had a problem with them. Have you guys had any issues with Origin? I mean, I'm not trying to, blow smoke up anybody's, tailpipe here and saying that, oh, it's just as good as anything else. But, I hear all these horror stories, but I've never experienced anything like them.
I will
I
tell
dislike their interface, but I've never had a serious problem caused by Origin.
I will tell you the only reason that I haven't messed with anything Origin, and that's because I have a peeve about having multiple things installed that do sort of the same thing. I think some people share this with me. Like for my IM Instant Messenger thing, I use Trillion because I don't like having MSN and AOL and Yahoo and blah blah and 10 different instant messaging apps installed. So same deal, right? If for distributed gaming stuff, it's Steam. They were the first one. That, in my opinion, they're pretty much the best one. So I would rather go buy a copy of something instead of using Origin for whatever that is under them. Which I think there are some titles that are only under Origin. So I guess that just sort of excludes me. But oh well.
But there is one thing I got to say about Steam, which is, and for that matter, Origin as well. I still don't trust either of them. If I have the choice, apart from the games you can't buy anymore, I will buy the actual physical copy of it. and then immediately register it on Steam. Because I don't want to find out that 6, 8 years down the road, for whatever reason, Valve goes out of business. Guess what? All your games are gone, as we were talking about earlier with Need for Speed or Burnout Paradise. So,
Steam,
you know,
Steam
if I
does
can...
Steam does let you back up the store, right? The data
Well,
store?
sort of, except good luck trying to play a single-player Steam game offline.
Oh.
Some of them work, some of them don't, so I don't see the point of being able to back up your games, because if the provider is gone, unless they're going to give you a completely new version that doesn't constantly whine to Steam to say I'm allowed to play or I'm not allowed to play, then it's going to be good.
Bert's saying that it's not fun at all to try to back up your Steam.
I honestly never tried it because, again, I don't need a backup. I've got the bloody discs behind me.
Yeah.
No, you've got a black curtain behind you.
That's what the black curtain's for,
like,
Josh. I don't have to clean things.
That's the other thing that I think 2D Boy did right, specifically with World of Goo, right? It's downloadable game. There's no DLC for it. It's just the game itself. And when you go to download it, you just get the installer. It doesn't call out to any server. It doesn't. You just have it. It's the game. As long as you have installer, it's the game, right? So it's downloadable, but it's something that you don't need the box for because you just have the installer.
Let me ask you this. We have good old games. For $5, you can get a huge selection. And I think that they are proving that there is a marketplace for this kind of thing. So wouldn't you assume that, say, Valve suddenly lost all their billions of dollars that they're sitting on, literally, and they went out of business and Steam was shut down, how many of those titles do you think would go to a third party like GOG.com and you'd get them for a couple of bucks? Would you be willing to pay that for some of these products?
Yep.
And for
a second time around? So you're saying a second time around, like you already had them? Yeah, if they're just a couple of bucks and it's and it was something that drastic, like, years from now, and I just wanted to play that game that I played, 5 years back or whatnot and have some nostalgia. Yeah, I'll pay a couple bucks for nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would pay a couple bucks for Descent just to, be nostalgic.
Yeah, well, and GOG is DRM free. So, moving on. What do we got going on this week? I'm still working on my water cooling. I didn't get a whole lot done this weekend. I had a couple other projects come up, and, I'm really good at making excuses. Alan, what you got going?
I sort of have the same excuses as you. My week has been horrible. But yeah, I'm still working on that dang the super flame retardant external hard drive enclosure.
Oh, the thing you can throw out a 10-story window and
the thing that they light on fire, then drop from 3 stories in a big truck and run something over it. And
has Ryan figured out how to mail you a thermite yet?
Yeah, good. I've looked for it locally, and I think I might get in trouble if I bought it. So,
well, he had to make his own.
No. Yeah, it's the IOSafe, and actually, it's actually going to be an interesting piece because not only did they get me the IOSafe sample, but they got me one of those Atheros. The little, it's like a wireless router, except it's not a wireless router. It's just a wireless access point for storage, right? It's like a little unit that has a couple of hard drive bays in it, but it also has an eSATA dock or an eSATA port out the back, so you can plug in external storage. So you can take the IOSafe as an eSATA external box to the wireless device to just act as like a network storage share, right? So you could take that whole thing packaged together and stick it in the garage or somewhere, out of sight. Then you can still have your storage on your network, and then if you're
in my cinder block doghouse with a UPS.
That would actually, that would sort of be like a good place for it, right? So then if all your house burns down and whatnot, and obviously the wireless access point part of it is going to be toast, but at least the data stored on the thing is going to still be there. I think it's a really good, that unit, having that sort of thing. I've actually considered taking a Drobo Pro and sticking it and getting one of those, those big fire safe things with the, consumable plastic fire safes, right? considered sticking some form of a external hard drive thing in there and just like leaving the lid propped on it with just like a straw or something holding it open, right? So that way it could stay cool. And then if there's a fire, hopefully the straw would melt first and then the lid would just slam shut and you'd be safe, right? And the thing would hopefully survive the fire.
Hopefully.
I think I saw that on Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I think it
never
involved a
worked.
coyote and a
Came from
roadrunner, but-
Acme.
Yeah.
So, but these guys basically did the same thing, right? It's the same kind of consumable material. It's just wrapped around, it's molded to shape to fit right around the hard drive. It has slots in it for airflow to travel around the hard drive. It has a fan, and it's just, and don't get me wrong, if there is an actual fire, the IO safe, the box itself, is probably not just going to fire right up. You're probably not just going to keep using this thing. That part of it's going to be toast. The ports out the back are going to be melted. That part's going to not work anymore. But it's a safe bet that you crack the thing open. The hard drive's probably going to be pristine in there because it would have never got.
Did these people actually tell you, use, abuse, and set this damn thing on fire to review it?
Well, they didn't say they wanted it back. So I mean, we can. I just can't.
Homemade
I just can't. See, here's the thing. They've already gone ahead and published a few pretty good videos on their website, and they did some demos at CES that were videotaped and that sort of
Did
thing.
they send it to Will It Blend?
They've really, I mean, short of Will It Blend, they've pretty much done all this bad stuff you could do to one of these things, and already shown that yeah, it does that. And the principles are solid, so it's not something where like I need to prove or disprove it. It's it's science. It's a consumable plastic that burns at a certain temperature. It's like phase change, right? A cup of boiling water is never going to get higher than 212 Fahrenheit at standard temperature and pressure, right? So same deal.
Pick a real
Just a little
temperature
bit hotter.
scale. It's reaching for 100.
Oh, you and your Canadian, 100 Celsius thing.
At 0, it's hard. At 100, it's soft. In
Yeah.
between, it's just sloshing.
Gotcha.
And it
I don't know
matches
what's-
Kelvin.
You guys do weird things with like gas volumes. Like it's not standard. I don't know what's up with that.
You don't like liters?
No, I mean like in even in England they use they got their own gallon or something. I don't know what it is. It's weird.
All right, we got to move on. Hardware and software picks of the week. Jeremy, since you're first on the list, why don't you tell what Ryan wants?
Well, since it was brought up, I had to put up the thermite link again because it's been a long time since we've seen that supposed 9600 go up. For those of you who don't
he
remember,
scraped rusty bumpers to get the iron oxide and then
Yes.
mixed it with aluminum. And
it
with
worked,
interesting results, yeah.
and it still ran cooler than a Fermi.
So what was that, a 9600? Isn't that what happens when the
Well,
fan
it was
fails?
supposed to be a
Pre-production.
9600.
That he bought on eBay or something.
he just friggin' killed it. Oh well. Yeah, thermite's pretty nasty stuff. You can take a little. You can.
Broke open an Etch-a-Sketch to get the aluminum. That's
I've seen people put some thermite in a ceramic flower pot thing with the hole out the bottom and just sit it on a car hood and light it off, and what's come out the bottom of that flower pot has gone straight through the block.
It's going to be a little warm.
It's through the block into the ground, a few inches into the friggin' ground. It doesn't go out. Class
So, Jeremy.
Delta fires are bad things.
yeah, okay. I guess we got to watch him try to light this stuff up.
Oh, did it actually light on this one easily? Oh yeah, he used
I can't-
Yeah, he fired up a
Sparkler.
sparkler finally.
yep. A freaking spark, just your general plain old sparkler and a bunch of iron oxide and a bunch of
Aluminum.
aluminum.
And that's your sketch that you've beaten with a rusty bumper you pulled off of a car.
Now, if
Yeah.
only he would have just fast forwarded through this, but
He was
Ah,
still
well,
learning.
It can
Well,
keep
he didn't
playing.
have a slave.
Well, it's actually about to go off. What's the name of this video for people that want to go and
PC Per takes Thermite to 9600 GTs.
It's back when we were using Imager to share, Vidler to share videos. And just wait for it.
I'm waiting.
But it like went out. It's like it's like one of those firecracker things.
Oh, it didn't work.
Why did it go out?
I don't
still a
know.
flame.
He didn't
That's a
shove
good
it far
question.
enough into the Thermite.
If you know what I mean. Oh, what did no.
Yeah, well.
Anyway. Anyway, Jeremy.
All right, I shall save you. Because I have found out that right now, the ISS is running the most important experiment known to human history.
What?
They're aging Scotch in space.
Oh.
Ardbeg sent up a barrel of Scotch, which is now sitting in microgravity and slowly aging. They have the same barrel and the same vatch of distilled Scotch sitting down on Earth under, our oppressive 1G. And so they're going to see just what sort of chemical changes are going to occur when the terpenes are allowed to swirl all around the barrel, just do whatever they feel like, as opposed to slowly sinking to the bottom and new Scotch touching the side and sinking to the bottom. It's going to sit, and things are going to move. Yeah.
I'm going
Do
to
you know
tell
how
you right now.
expensive
I'm going to tell you right now how this
barrel
experiment's
are going to be?
Okay, I'm going to tell you how this is going to turn out, because
I'm
I
not
don't
going to be
know how
able to
the
afford a
guys
bottle.
stuck on the ISS for God knows how long feel, but I have spent like 3 months at a pop on a submarine out in the ocean, and if we had a barrel of Scotch sitting somewhere on the submarine,
That bunghole would not be safe from anyone.
it would be, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's nice wording there, Josh.
So you're saying instead of about 5 to 10% evaporating for the Angel's Dram, you're saying about 5 to 10% might be left?
Yeah, if they're lucky, there's going to be some left. They
Alcohol
better have that
evaporation in
sitting-
space.
I'm telling you, it's not going to last. This is like, there must have been some kind of like space aliens that just drank our Scotch. I don't know. Yeah. A whole barrel? Was it a whole barrel?
That's,
They had to make, like, some kind of mini.
Boy,
It's
that's got to be
expensive.
expensive to ship up there.
It's
Well,
expensive to ship that stuff.
oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be a fairly small one. It's going to be a quarter cask or so. You're not going to look at a full cask. But a
50
quarter
gallon.
cask,
Yeah.
prohibition area, you could stick it under your arm and run from the cops with it.
Oh yeah. Or just. slip
But
it in
the
there.
register, they were being a little bit cagey about exactly what's going on with it, so we don't know exactly how much. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to afford a bottle of it.
They're gonna get
Humbly
crunk
not.
on the ISS.
Josh,
Anyway.
speaking of old software,
Old software. Morrowind was one of my kind of gaming experiences that just stays with you. Like one of the first ones was Unreal and Quake 2, obviously. Doom 1, again, one of those titles that you just remember. Morrowind was another one of them. And, the storyline is great. The quest structure is good. You do interesting things like, solve murders, kill demigods, fun things like that. Well, the graphics were pretty good for 2002, not so good for 2012. So the guys at Morrowind Overhaul have put together a large collection of mods, put them together in an easily installable package called the Morrowind Overhaul 2.0, and you apply that to Morrowind, and it looks so much better. It doesn't look as good as Oblivion, but it's a whole heck of a lot more palatable, and it will actually kind of beat on your machine a little bit more than the original Morrowind would. So if you feel like, going over a cherished experience again, then this is something fun and really cheap and easy to do. So, Morrowind Overhaul, get it if you like it.
Sweet.
Sweet.
My turn. All right.
Your turn, Alan.
StarTech Actually, they're one of those funny companies that they include .com in their name. But yeah, so StarTech.com. They make a bunch of like USB, eSATA, those kind of docking station things. They're pretty good. They have like a whole huge line of them. But they recently added one that caught my eye, which was they've tacked on an IDE port in the back of the unit. So if you want, you can take an old school IDE drive if you have one that you need to image or whatnot, and you don't have to fumble around for, hey, they still exist.
I love
right?
it.
So,
I know it's awesome.
It's
so,
the
yeah.
picture. That's brilliant.
the picture is like it's this Frankenstein dock, right? Because, where you usually have this nice eSATA thing, you just stick the drive in the dock and you're good. Well, if you stick the drive in upside down and you just plug in this ribbon cable, then now you have, and it's
This
convenient,
toaster's bagel
right?
option takes a little bit of work.
Yes. But it's good for, you would have to spend like extra money on something else if you wanted to be able to. I mean, what motherboards anymore can you even plug those things into anymore, right?
IDEs.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so if you need to image one of these things, or if you're in a position where you're just constantly the guy that's helping somebody recover their hard drive, hint hint, this guy, it's you still come across these, right? You still come across older PCs that have IDE drives in them, so it would be very convenient to have that sort of a thing just sitting there. You'd probably leave the cable bundled just hiding somewhere for most of the time, but it's nice to be able to do that. Just plug a drive into the same dock that you're using. And these guys, this specific model doesn't do it, but they've come out with models in the past that have done like duplication, like standalone duplication. You just stick two drives in, you just hit a button and it just does it. Doesn't even need to be plugged into a computer. So it wouldn't surprise me if later on they just added that feature to their big model that does that sort of thing. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. So that's my pick. It's like it goes for I think $60 on Newegg right now. But it's a dual hard drive dock, USB 3.0 eSATA dock.
Yeah.
Or not eSATA, sorry, SATA dock. SATA/IDE dock. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. StarTech.com.
You can plug
All
all kinds of
right.
stuff
Well,
into it, and it just works.
Again. Oh, sorry.
No, okay.
Again, if you want to get a hold of us, dial 188-38-PC-PER. Leave Ryan a very, very nice message about how much you have missed him and how his sweet, sweet ginger face has made your day. Or you can email him at podcast@pcper.com. He reads every one. So if you're selling herbal Viagra, go ahead and give him a holler. You can find this at pcper.com/podcast. You can watch us again and again ad nauseum, and I'm sure that your ears would bleed by the end. And if you don't feel like your ears bleeding and rather your eyes, then you can get a hold of us at twitter.com/Ryan Shrout or twitter.com/PCper. So that was episode 197 without Ryan Shrout, but with the three guys, namely myself, Josh Walrath,
Jeremy Hellstrom.
And Alan Malventano.
So thanks for sticking with us for this hour and a half assault on your senses. Good night.